Greetings and welcome to another edition of the Ad Astra Kansas Money Talks podcast. I'm Joe Blubaugh, and I'm joined, as always, by Mark Johnson and Bob Schwartz. And these are the gentlemen and the brains behind Bob Schwartz Financial. They have offices in Victoria, Kansas, as well as Silver Lake, Kansas, and you can find out more about them if you want to contact them. All their contact information is available at bobschwartzfinancial.com. Do all the things, if you would, please. Thumbs up, give us a like, subscribe, do all those things. We would appreciate it. Today, we are going to talk about a topic that has had a somewhat recent change and can have a significant impact on your financial future and your retirement if you're not sure how to properly manage it. And we're going to talk about inherited IRAs. So, Mark, first of all, why don't you give us a quick overview of what is an inherited IRA?
Yeah, so most people are familiar with their individual retirement accounts, your IRA, your Roth IRAs, whatever that is that you have for yourself. But a lot of people don't think about, your parents, grandparents, uncle, whatever it is that has their own IRA. What happens to those if they're not all the way used up and they pass away? And if you're a beneficiary for that, for one of those, for those people, then you inherit that IRA. And there's different rules that apply to these inherited IRAs than your own. And so we just want to make sure we go over that because as our majority of our population ages, we're seeing more people inherit IRAs and not really know, I guess, what to do with it.
So, Bob, let's talk about that just for a second because the generation that is, in their senior years at this point, the boomer generation, they're really the first generation that's had these large, significant amounts of savings that are in place in lieu of a pension. And I think we're starting to see the beginnings of, I think I've heard it called the largest generational transfer of wealth in human history. And this is a big deal.
Well, and this will be the largest transfer of wealth in human history until your generation. I mean, let's face it, with inflation, every generation is the largest. Yeah. But yeah, boomers' parents, most of them didn't have IRAs, or if they did, they were $10,000 or, back in the 70s and the 80s, even up into the mid-90s, it was seldom that you'd see a large IRA. Unless somebody died young that had put a lot of money into a 401k, you didn't see it. And now, we see it, I'm going to guess once a week. And it totally affects, it used to be you could inherit an IRA and most people just cash them in. Because they weren't a significant amount of money, didn't have to pay a penalty. But you could take a lifetime income stream from them, which as they got larger, people did that. But now they've kind of switched the laws on that a little bit. But there's a lot of people going to inherit IRAs. They are a game changer for a lot of adult children, and you just need to be judicious with how you look at turning that into paying off your house or income stream, whatever.
Before we get into some of the laws and the changes that have happened, maybe it would be a good idea to talk about there's different types of beneficiaries kind of have different impact on the rules. So, Mark, maybe a quick overview on some of the different beneficiary types, and we can all jump in here with some of the differences between them and how they get taxed, so to speak.
I can go over the basic ones, or the basic one for sure. The most obvious one would be your spousal beneficiary. It's the most flexible. Your spouse dies, you can transfer that IRA into your own, and
there's
no penalty.
You don't have to pull money out unless you're of the age that you're required to do a minimum distribution.
Yeah, so you'd only be subject to RMDs, which obviously would go up if your amount of your account goes up, but other than that, there's no other penalties or anything. So that is the most flexible. It is the I guess I don't want to say easiest, but
so correct me if I'm wrong on the way I kind of look at this is you are required by law to keep your IRA separate, even within a marriage. So with the spouse, I have my IRA, my retirement savings, my wife has hers.
Yeah.
But upon death, those walls break down, and it's just like you were always combined
It
anyway.
was always together.
Right.
Yes.
Is that a great way to look at that?
Yeah.
Yep.
That's
yep.
great.
Yeah, you just can turn it into your IRA and move on with it. Yeah.
Okay.
And then there's two other major types of beneficiaries. Your eligible designated beneficiaries. So those are like minor children, disabled, chronically ill heirs, or someone within 10 years of the original owner's age. Those are called eligible designated beneficiaries. They can either take life expectancy withdrawals or the 10-year rule, okay, which I'll let Bob talk about here in a second. They can't roll this over into their IRA.
Has to be an inherited.
It has to be an inherited IRA. Do you want to talk about the 10-year rule, Bob, maybe?
Of
Or talk about the life expectancy withdrawals versus a 10-year rule, I
Well,
guess.
a life expectancy withdrawal, let's say you have a minor child.
Yep.
And let's say there's $250,000 in that. That child doesn't have to pull that money out in 10 years. They can do life expectancy. Well, if you're 10 years old, I don't have that number off the top of my head, but your life expectancy is rather long
Yep.
compared to, say, somebody 50. And so the amount of money you have to withdraw is small compared to what it would be for someone older. Now, what's important about that is in that situation, that child, that money can basically stay there and work for like college, things like that. The 10-year rule, say that child was 19 years old when the parent passed away, you have to pull that money out within 10 years. And you have to do a required minimum distribution each year during the period of time. You can't wait and pull it all out 1 year.
And
You can pull it out 1 year, I'm sorry. You can pull it all out in 1 year anytime you want, without penalty. But if you don't pull it out during the first 12 months, you've got to take a required minimum distribution on it.
Right.
Okay?
And that 10-year is a change with Secure 2.0, is that correct?
Yes, yes, it is. Like Mark was talking about, the non-eligible beneficiaries, you've got to pull it out over a 10-year period. And, okay, here's what we all thought when this all started. Hey, I can do a Roth IRA. I can leave it to my kids. And if my kids don't need it, they can leave it to their kids, and on and on. And of course, they did not work that way. Well, under the beneficiary rules now, you have to liquidate a Roth IRA in 10 years. Now, think about what the government did there. You inherit a tax-free instrument, but it disappears in 10 years. And sure, you can turn around and put it in your Roth IRA, but you're stopping yourself from putting, it.
The bottom line is, and the reason, I believe, the reason the federal government did this 10-year rule is they want that money pulled out so that they can get their
So
share.
it gets back to work. A lot of people that I interact with in our industry, we all felt like when the government did this that at some point in time they were going to go, whoops, we're doing away with these, no more. They haven't yet, but what they're showing here is we don't know how to back it out without making everybody mad, so we're going to make sure that nobody can carry it on for generations.
Yeah. Bob talked about the last group then, which is the most common that we come across, is the non-eligible beneficiaries. So those are like adult kids inheriting parents' IRAs, and they're subject to the 10-year rule that we're talking about. So that's kind of the last major group that, besides where it gets I don't want to say more complicated, but a little more complex would be a non-person beneficiary. So a charity, a state, a trust, but they have special rules and tax treatments.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
Like we
I
said,
don't
it
know.
gets a little bit more complex.
I was going to say, I know a little bit about each thing, but not a ton. So
The one thing that I've always thought I understood is that if it is going to a non-person, that 10-year rule is no longer applicable, it becomes a 5-year rule. Is
Right.
that it? Correct?
You hit the nail on the
Yep.
head. We just became aware of a gentleman that passed away, and he left his IRAs to his grandchildren and to charitable foundation. And the grandchildren will have to spend that money over a 10-year period. The charitable foundation has to move that money out in a 5-year period.
Yep.
And of course, a charitable foundation, they don't care if it's an IRA. They're gonna pull it all out at once and not pay any tax on any of it. So, kind of an interesting thing there. But then there's also there's a lot of tax implications. For instance, how do you know how much to pull out every year for 10 years? How does the government say that should be done? And they haven't said
Yeah,
yet.
they haven't, yeah.
Yeah.
And
So-
in fact, for the first couple of years after Secure 2.0, if I remember correctly,
Yep.
they didn't give any guidance, and they actually exempted,
They
let you roll it for a couple of years.
Yeah, halfway
yeah.
through the year, they said, "Oops, okay, you don't have to pull any money out this year." So people got a 3-year buffer on having to pull money out. Of course, how have those 3 years been in the market?
Yeah, really,
Yeah.
really good.
Yeah, and that's great. That's what we all want. But by not pulling out each of those years, they might have painted themselves into a tax situation. But you can't, you can't actuarially look at pulling money out over 10 years and say, well, just whatever the amount was when Grandpa died, that's what you have to, divide that by 10, and that's what you pull out each year. Because and so do you figure risk-free return, which would be, roughly 3.5% right now? Or do how do you do that? And the government's given no guidance on
Right.
that.
And, as with everything, I'm sure it's so dependent on the individual situation as well. If you're somebody like myself who is a few years away from retiring, but many years away from Social Security, I might want to take out
Yep.
very minimum withdrawals right now and focus on maybe those last couple of years where I'm kind of in between income, so to speak, retired but not drawing Social Security. That might be a good time to take some out.
And Joe, that is the great majority of inherited IRAs that we're seeing are 50-plus beneficiaries. Otherwise, not 25-year-olds. Mom and dad pass away. When their children are in their 50s and 60s, a totally different game there. And yes, so say somebody's 60 and a parent passes away, and they want to retire. Well, there is an income stream with no penalty, with no, there's not any penalty at 60 anyway, but there's no
Early withdrawal.
Yeah, their money can rest until their required minimum distribution, and they can use for the next 10 years. Use that money as an income stream for them during their retirement. So we're seeing that as a great benefit to 50-plus people inheriting money. And thank goodness, because sometimes people haven't saved enough.
And
Yeah.
I do think that one thing that I think about with this whole thing is people that are 50, 60 have at least have retirement on their mind. They've at least they understand their tax strategy. They kind of they've started to get things. What I worry is about people in their 30s and 40s, 20s, whatever it is, and you get this amount of money and it's like, they don't really know what
boy.
it is. Yeah,
Oh, boy.
I'm just going to cash a check out.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they don't understand the implications of that necessarily. So
Right.
I think that's something that kind of, I don't know, it doesn't pop up a ton to us, but definitely does.
That's a
once in while,
planning.
you
That's a
know.
planning.
Yeah.
Right.
Definitely a planning situation. And,
Well, if you get somebody that inherits an IRA and they're in their mid to late 40s, they might be at their peak earning years.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden now they have this extra income. And yes, marginal tax rate and everything, but that extra income, that's the last income, so to speak, and it's always taxed at whatever, the highest
rate
levels,
they're at.
right?
Yeah,
And so it can have some huge tax implications as well. So
And one thing, for everybody listening, for all of us to always understand, generally, if mom and dad leave a large IRA, kids are probably pretty good at saving and investing also. So we see that a lot, Joe, where the children were going, hey, 10 years from now I might be retired. I don't want to, before 2019, I don't want to pull any money out now because, I'm in a 22% tax bracket at the top end, and, I just don't want that. Well, now that's not a choice. What we can do then is say, okay, you're putting $12,000 a year in your 401k. You need to ramp that up to 26,
Yep.
and then that distribution isn't going to hit you as hard.
Quite as hard, right?
So there's planning things that can be done, but in the great majority, when people that know how to save and invest money that are 80 years old now, generally their children are pretty good at it too. They paid attention.
Before we get into kind of the tenure rule and what it is, and I think I know the answer to this, but I'm confused enough that I think it'd be good for us to talk about it again, even though we've kind of touched on it already. With a distribution, if it's traditional money, non-tax money, that's just like taking a distribution from a normal IRA. It's income and it's tax. If it's Roth, it's not tax, correct?
Correct.
So, but both versions, whether it's traditional or Roth, you still only have that 10-year time frame to take it out.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Very good.
And now points, and these are the things that we don't think about as just general, running around having life and being, and thinking about what's going to happen tax-wise. So you've got somebody that's got $2 million in IRAs, and they've got two children. So each of those children are going to inherit $1 million. And let's say one of those children is a physician and makes $600,000 a year. And let's say mom and dad are contemplating converting all of their $2 million to a Roth IRA. What's going to happen to them? And we've seen people do it with large amounts because they had higher earning heirs, and it's devastating what it does because you're in the top tax bracket, 30, by the time you throw in the state, 42, 43%. Plus, you increase your Medicare for 1 year, you get penalized the full amount, and mom and dad are each paying about $900 a month for their Medicare. So we have seen clients where it makes sense accounting-wise to move some over to Roth, but you want to pay very, very close attention to the penalties that can be incurred.
Yeah, there's like little windows we always find, for Roth conversion. And if you're not in those little windows, it's not, maybe not a good time.
Well, and this is just this conversation that you guys just had, it just hammers home to me every time when I hear this. It is complicated when you are nearing retirement, and especially if you have significant amount of money, there are so many tripwires along the way, and if you do not, like younger than me, and you really need to start this when you really start to accumulate some wealth and you're mid to late 40s, you have to start thinking about what's coming up in 20 years, because if you don't go into retirement with a plan, it can be devastating, just like you just said.
Just think about how many, high net worth individuals or just people that have accumulated a decent amount of money as they've worked, the different income streams they have, the different real estate, the different things they give to, their different children's situation, college for grandkids, and everybody's situation is different. Everyone has their little interest, little things that make their situation special, and inherited IRAs are just another thing to get thrown onto the, complexity of financial planning for people.
Right. Yeah.
Soapbox time.
Okay. I'll get my coffee ready.
Yeah. You can go on the internet, on YouTube, and you can watch 30-minute shows all day long with advisors going, you got to convert all your money over to a Roth, or we're going to teach you how to have tax-free income at retirement. never pay any taxes. And does that work? Maybe, but there's no one thing that fixes everything.
Yeah, for every single person.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And yeah, I see conversion to Roth all the time. And why do I see it? Because we as a society don't want to pay taxes. So it's a buzzword, convert to a Roth. I have sat with multiple CPAs and said, let's go through and do this person, this couple. And we'll set, and we get to the end and they go, there's no difference between waiting and paying the taxes as you have to pull it out or converting. But the fact that you can sit there and go, I'm leaving my kids the money tax-free, to which I say, and they got to pull it out in 10 years anyway. Yeah. You know, so it generally, you know, so soapbox time, pet peeve, you can't go buy life insurance and borrow the cash value and live tax-free. I mean, it's not going to work. You know, it's a way to get in your
Yep.
in your life. And the same with conversion. And just keep in mind that everybody's situation is different.
Yeah, because there is a good time for certain people to convert.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, but not for every single
like
person.
when you're funding it.
Yeah.
Like when you're putting your money away.
Yeah.
Or conversion, somebody retires at 60 and they've got plenty of money non-qualified to live off of. Great time to be converting dollars over.
Or sometimes, like in my situation where I feel like I have plenty of Roth money, and I was just lucky enough that in my time frame of savings, we ended up putting all of our money into Roth, but I still have a significant amount in, you know, non-qualified as well because of all of those matches we got. So, you know, I just plan on living on that money. I'm not going to convert it, but in that time frame from retirement to Social Security time, I'm just going to pull from that pot of money.
Amen.
Yep.
Amen. And there's another example for the people that in our listening area. Ag producers, they always take the tax deductible IRA. I mean, SEP or whatever type of retirement plan they have. They don't like paying taxes. Well, once they get a substantial amount in those retirement plans, then they can start, like this year will be a year we'll do a lot of Roth conversion because farmers aren't making any money this year. Their profit's not there. So there are ag producers, they can control their income, and there are some great times for them to do conversions. So converting is many, many times a great thing to do, but don't set and think that it's 100% of the time the right thing for you to do with your money that's in a taxable situation.
Any like just going off your soapbox, anytime someone says this is the only thing or this is the best thing or you need to buy X and X product, X and X commodity, you know, gold, whatever it is, you know, that's not safe probably, or that's not in your best interest. They are selling a product.
I was going to say that's the key right there. You know, when you started saying that, my brain was saying they probably just want to sell you something.
Yeah.
And they're not looking out for your best interest.
But you see that all the time in the era we live in. There's of 30-second video clips. I mean, this is great. You know, here are all the great things in 30 seconds, and you look at that and you're like, oh, that's pretty cool.
Mark walks in my office all the time and laughs because of what I have on my feed, on my
his like ads. Yeah,
so
they're ridiculous.
My ads are all about upset stomachs and seniors.
But they're also selling
and fog
and selling ridiculous products. And I'm like, I'm not targeted by these ads as a 30-year-old.
But boy, as 75-year-olds are.
And I think about my grandparents or other people's grandparents sitting at home being like, you know, getting caught up in some of these, what I would consider pretty much false advertisements, you know, of products that aren't good. And I think that is an elder abuse to its highest level, is taking advantage of people that, you know, are at home watching these ads, telling them that you know, having no consequences with telling them that this is the best thing, this is what you should do, you know. I don't know.
Right. Well, because somebody said to me somewhere that they were having problems restroom wise, my feeds are full of videos about improving your poop. I mean, Mark walks in all the time, and there's this. It claims it's a doctor, but he's sitting there talking about, and if you take this, and it will, and you're just sitting there going, you got to be kidding.
So we have definitely got sidetracked here, but the moral to Bob's story is that if you're looking for financial products out there and you're of a certain age, the algorithm will give you what Mark is saying, products that might not be what's best for you. So be very careful.
Every third one on my feed is gold and silver. And nothing against gold and silver. It's not a retirement plan.
Right.
It's a Armageddon plan.
It's also at an all-time high.
Right. Yeah. Plus, you're buying something at its peak, which is the market right now too. Which is why we don't buy 100% of the market day one. But at any rate, yeah, you got to pay attention. And we've watched clients take their money and put it all into gold and silver, and it's not going to create any income for them. And well, they can sell it. Yeah.
For a little discount.
Yeah.
On what you bought it for.
Right.
So let's real quick. We're running out of time on our episode here.
Well,
Let's
we can't start talking about pooping and gold and silver.
We're going to talk about the 10-year rule. Real quick, historically, can you explain the stretch rules, what it used to be? And there are still people that can still use that.
Yes,
because
if your parent passed away before 2019, or your heir, you have in lifetime expectancy. The government has a table, have tables that say if you're 10 years old, your life expectancy is this, and if you withdraw from an inherited IRA, it is X amount, and it'll be a very small amount. So say on $100,000, a 10-year-old might have to pull out $350 a year, where a 20-year-old would have to pull out $2,000 a year, and a 60-year-old would have to pull out $5,000 a year or whatever. Mm-hmm. So they have tables for that.
Okay, and that's what it used to be. But Secure 2.0 did a lot of great things, but this one maybe not so great for the person that's inheriting an IRA. Now it's the 10-year rule, and we've kind of talked about what that is. So you have 10 years on paper, or I think the intent might have been you have to take out a certain amount per year, but in reality, I think they've kind of left that be. You just 10 years is when you have to have that out by. And
well, yeah, you have to pull out some each year.
Some,
you
okay.
You have to do a required minimum distribution, and there are tables for that.
There are,
Yeah.
okay.
So, but then if that's all you've done for 10 years, then all of a sudden you're going to have a large lump sum.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to big sum at the end. Yeah.
So very quickly, how do we handle that professionally or the best way possible? Let's say somebody's not retiring, they're 50 years old, and they're going to retire at 65. And they have a home loan for $200,000. Not unusual at all in this day and age. So they inherit $200,000 in an IRA. Well, we can pull all that $200,000 out and pay off our house. Yeah, but what's the interest rate on your house? Well, it's 2.5%. Okay, why don't we pull out the $20,000 a year and apply it to your principal, and over the next 10 years you'll pay tax on that $20,000 each year, as opposed to boom, 1 year going up to 35%. Yeah. So there are things like that where we can help people. Now, let's say they're paying 8%.
Maybe the math problem gets a little
then
more.
We're going to look at where the box is at, and we're going to, we might take you up 2% in your tax bracket in order to pay it off over, let's say, a 3-year period to not, to offset that interest that you're paying out. Yep. So there's all kinds of ways to look at it smartly. Don't just inherit that IRA and go, okay, it's $5,000 a year I'm going to pull out, and I'll just put that in my checking account and I'll go invest it, and then 2 weeks later that $5,000's got absorbed into the family budget, and that's what you don't want to do with that windfall.
Yeah, very good, and always great advice there as well. And it just it really drives home the point that if you're not very familiar with this, an inherited IRA is a blessing, but it can be a complicated blessing. And it's always good to consult with a tax advisor. If you need help from a financial advisor, take advantage of the expertise that those people bring.
Yep.
A lot of things to look at.
Yeah.
Sorry we got off on poop.
You never know with Bob where we're going to go with these conversations, but they're always entertaining, I'll say that. With that, we're going to wrap up this episode. We hope that we've been able to bring you a little bit of information, a little bit of help if you're either have inherited an IRA or maybe have one coming your way in the future. If you would like some personal help, these gentlemen are available. Once again, you can find them at bobschwartzfinancial.com. We hope you like this episode. Subscribe. We'd really appreciate that. Give us a thumbs up. Gentlemen, have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Everybody have a
Thank you,
great day.
everyone. Bye-bye.